All right, we're on air. Okay, it's Thursday. Happy Thursday. Thursday's backdrop day. Happy backdrop day. We're here to talk to you about Backdrop CMS, which is a content management system intended specifically for small to medium-sized businesses, nonprofits, and people who are concerned about their budget in terms of supporting their website long term. We're going to create a tool that has comparable features to Drupal 7 on an architecture that's more similar, or comparable features to Drupal 8 on an architecture that's more similar to that of Drupal 7. While creating that system, we're going to be fixing bugs. So these are bugs that exist in Drupal 7, bugs that exist in Drupal 8, and other bugs that have not yet been identified, perhaps specific to Backdrop. And we'll fix those as we find them also. And hopefully while we're adding these new features and fixing bugs, we'll be able to simplify some of the systems that already are in the tool. Drupal 7 is already too complicated and too hard to learn, and we want to make that easier. So we're going to try and simplify existing systems as long as that doesn't require too much API change to do so. So the big goal is to make a tool that is really easy to migrate to from Drupal 7. So that means that some of the things that we want to change, we might decide not to because it's more important to preserve the ease of upgrade from Drupal 7 to Backdrop than it is to change the things that are stupid about Drupal 7. So our timeline, we're going to be releasing Backdrop 1.0.0 this fall, which is soon. So we're currently looking at a list of things we have left to do and prioritizing in terms of what we should be spending our time on. And trying to get the most important things done so that we can release, and then we'll be able to add more releases at regular intervals afterwards. So anything that we think that we can do without a major API change, like fixing bugs or adding new features, we can push those back to after the initial release just so they can get the first version out and start working on building sites with it and seeing how it works. So we're super excited about that. In terms of what we're working on right now, we have 3 things that are release blockers. The first one is our blocks and layouts tool, which is really, really close to being done. Nate, do you want to give us a little update on where that stands?
Yeah, sure. My computer's acting a little jerky. Are you guys able to hear me okay?
So far?
Okay. All right, I'll just keep talking. So blocks and layouts are looking really good. We're planning on doing some final testing. My hope was that we will be able to merge it today. BW Panda has been doing an excellent job of providing some really great feedback. He pulled up a couple issues that we need to get resolved today, and we need to merge in with the latest 1.x because a couple of things have changed, more system updates and things like that, so we need to resolve all of the conflicts before we can actually merge. But the base system is totally ready to go. Our testing is pretty comprehensive. It drastically improves the situation that we're in a whole bunch of areas, lets us place blocks multiple times, lets us use multiple layouts, lets us override paths, lets us create new paths, introduces contexts. It's all kinds of really great stuff. And I think that we're really at a point where we should be putting it in there because right now, although we've been getting great testing as is from a few people that have been active in the queue, I think it would be really excellent if we could get the broader audience using Backdrop kind of familiar with it and actually seeing it. We need a broader audience basically to test it right now, and I think the best way to do that is to get it into the project and then move forward from there. We've got a follow-up issue. Let's see, what number is that? So 86 is the layout issue, if you'd like to look directly at that one. But then we started a follow-up task at 3:45 that will be kind of the things that we want to do afterwards. So the base system will still just provide the current blocks. It won't make any new ones. But we've got this follow-up for doing important things like adding field, like a block per field, and adding a search box for the list of all blocks and things like that. So there's still a lot of work to be done, but the base system is really good. And with any luck, we can get that wrapped up today, the initial version at least, and then we'll move on to the follow-up tasks.
Okay. That sounds
That's
great.
the plan.
So, really close with blocks and layouts. I also want to try that today. When we're done with this call, I want to give it a poll and try it. I'll take a look at the issues that BW Panda reported first, just so that I have an idea of what those are. But I'm super excited to give it a spin, and anything I can do to help get that moved forward, I'll try and work on that too. Other things that we're working on that are super important are the config management tool that we're trying to build. We're doing something very similar to what Drupal 8 is doing in terms of making it so that you can build a feature in one environment and deploy it to another environment by keeping all of our configuration in files. The way that we've done ours is different than the way that Drupal 8 has done it because our project has different goals and philosophies, but having that tool is going to be killer. That's basically what everybody's most excited about in Drupal 8, and so trying to get that so we can use it right now is good. I know that we have most of our variables converted. There's still a bunch that need some rethinking, and Nate started working on some of the subsystems. He started working on content types this week and consolidated some of our existing system-wide config. So do you want to give us a quick update on where that is too?
Yeah, you pretty much summarized it right there, though. We used to have like 7 or so config files that were all used by core. Things like the system, like site information, like the name of the site was one thing, but then like the performance page was another config file, and the date and time settings is another config file. And we got this largely because we were imitating Drupal 8's implementation where every single form had its own dedicated config file. But looking at it, we figured that like our config files and our forms are not coupled together nearly as tightly as they are in Drupal 8. And for the sake of efficiency and cleanliness, we can combine a whole bunch of those config files together. And that's what we did for all of the variables that are provided by core modules that are absolutely required, like user module, entity, menu, actually not menu, but the base menu system, and system module. And we combined all those config files together to make it so that we only need to read one config file instead of 8 config files every page request. And then we added a layer of caching on top of that, just a static cache, so that whenever you say config get system.core, then it's going to read the file only once from disk and then use a static cache every other time. So I mean that had a minor performance improvement. It was really small. It was like 1 to 2%. But I mean it's a performance improvement nonetheless, and it's also I think going to prevent the site from having performance regressions as you add more and more functionality to the site. So that was a nice little cleanup. And the other thing, let's see, subsystem-wise, I started working on node types this week, and they've been coming along really fast. I've got an issue for that one already and a pull request that's already ready. As far as I can tell, it looks fully ready to go, but it probably will need a little bit more reviewing before we merge it in. It's only node types, so it's only the ability to create a new content type in the UI and things like that. It's not actually fields at this point. Fields are a separate CMI task that once we get node types, taxonomy, vocabularies, and user roles, those are the 3 different types of entities that we have in core. Once we get each one of those converted into using CMI initially, then we'll go through and then we'll add fields to all of them at once, probably. That's my hope for the order of operations.
Okay, that sounds great. What kind of a review do you need on that CMI patch? You just need people to test it and make sure it actually works the same after as before in terms of creating a content type? Or do we need to review the file that was created and try and deploy it to a different site, see if it'll import, that kind of stuff?
No, I don't think we need to test the individual file any more than, well, I mean, it wouldn't hurt, but I don't think we need automated testing for that because we already have testing that checks to make sure importing and exporting generic files work. And I don't think we need to rebuild the same tests for every file that we add.
Okay.
But it would be good just to run through the entire operation as soon as this pull request is ready.
Okay, that sounds good. So is it not ready for testing yet, or?
It
Okay.
probably, yeah. I mean, it's really close, but I don't know. You could test it right now, but there's no pull request yet
Oh,
for it.
I thought you
So
said
I
there
guess
was one.
it's not quite. It's well.
Okay, I'll work on layouts because I want to do that anyway.
Okay, yeah. Layouts is what, and these two things like step all over each other because they need to change a lot of the same things, which is another reason why I'd like to get layouts out of the way and into core so that way I won't need to keep re-rolling both of them for a long period of time.
Okay. That sounds good. Let's see. Where's my agenda? It's over here. All right. So other things that we're working on is getting the views module into core. We have views in Backdrop core. We have some of the views starting to be converted, which is great. I noticed that BW Panda has been working on those, which is good. We've got a couple of them in the queue that need review, I think. And then we have a couple more that are a little bit more complicated to move over. Like they're going to need views bulk operations integration so that we can switch over our admin pages. I was actually wondering if maybe we should move that task to after launch so that we just get our front end views done before launch and then we get our admin stuff done after launch. Or is it like, so the way that the VBO stuff works, we have all of that functionality in core now. Is it going to be an API change to replace that with the VBO version of something like publishing a node? Or can we keep that the same?
Yeah, well, we need to look at the overall action system and get that. I know that's one of our tasks is converting the action system to CMI, but I'm not really sure how involved that is. I know that the way Drupal 8 implemented things with the VBO system, especially around canceling user accounts, it didn't actually like create a new way that user accounts are canceled. It just kind of wrapped the existing functionality into an action. So it literally, the action actually does nothing but set a value in the session and then redirect you to a page that user module currently provides for canceling user accounts.
Okay, so it's possible to do it after the launch, although it would be good to do it before so that we can review all that stuff and make sure we want to keep it around.
Right. Yeah, I would say it's probably within the realm of acceptable compatibility to do it
Okay.
after the launch as well.
Okay. Just because I think it would be good to focus on, we've only got so much time left. So if we could get the front end stuff done and forget about the back end stuff, that might be good. Because people can replace those pages with views anyway, even if they're not already views in core.
Right.
In Contrib. All right. So let's see. We've got other things that we're working on. Some things that are super important are making sure that we get all of the security updates that are going into Drupal 7, also into Backdrop, particularly relevant right now, considering the massive problem that everybody found out about yesterday with Drupal. So it would be good. I created an issue for that one, and I created an issue for the previous security issue for Drupal 7 too on Backdrop so that we can figure out what those changes are and get them in. We have one live site running Backdrop that I know of, so I would like to get that security fix into Backdrop so that we can update that live site, just so that we're not also potentially exposing people to the same risks that Drupal was now that that issue is public. So that would be great. I'm going to want to work on that today too. So I'll first want to test layouts, and then I want to work on these security issues. That's my plan for today. And then there's other things too, like not only security issues that we need to move over that have been solved in Drupal, but also other issues that have been solved in Drupal 7. So there's a bunch of bug fixes that get moved into the latest version of Drupal 7. We have an issue that's tracking those. We just need to make sure we get those same patches reworked and applied to Backdrop so that we can get the same bug fixes, which is going to be great. There's only a handful of those left as well. And we've got other stuff that we're working on in terms of keeping up with what Drupal 8 is doing, and that is we've handpicked out a bunch of issues that we think are super important for Backdrop, and we've made meta issues for them, and it'll be good to just make sure those are done. We have 3 HTML5 issues left. We have a handful of JavaScript cleanup stuff, again, not mission critical, but would be good to get our JavaScript consistent before we ship. And then we have a bunch of little minor things that we're working on as well that are not release blockers, but will make Backdrop better. The first one is separating our identity from Drupal's identity, and we've already done this by rebranding the installer page, which is good, and we have Julia working on a style guide for the administration theme. We got an email from her earlier this week, so I know that she's working on it, just asking generally about how she should be working with the style guide Git repo, so that's a good news. So if we can get that done, we can start to create issues that are like, okay, the style guide says headings should look like this, but our headings look different. Let's fix, the CSS for all headings on the site, or what have you. We can add all of the changes that she wants in separate issues and crank through those fairly quickly once we have them, which will be great. Other stuff we're working on is theme system cleanup. We've got a bunch of issues here that are pretty straightforward and a bunch that are a little bit more complicated. Some of the theme system, like kind of conceptually how it works, is going to be significantly different after we get layouts in. Like our page templates won't be page templates anymore. They're going to be layouts, depending on which type of page you want. So some of that is on hold until we get the layout stuff done. But there is a bunch of other stuff that we could do that's in that issue that's ready for people to work on it if we have people who want to work on it. I've got a couple that I've got half done that I should create pull requests for just so people can see what I'm doing. But we'll see when I can get to that. Other things we're working on are some user experience improvements, like changing the way that people interact with the software. We've got a meta issue for terminology updates. I think that one thing that is important to mention too is that in Drupal there's a lot of emphasis on making the right decision because we have to stick with that decision through the entire Drupal cycle. But I think in Backdrop we should be okay about trying something and seeing if it works and then trying something else if it doesn't. So we, for example, changed the name of the link in the main navigation that used to say modules to functionality. And there's been a lot of pushback about, like, Drupal 8 named it something else, and other people wanted it to say plugins, and it's like, look, let's just try functionality because it's in. If it doesn't work, we can change it. We're not married to this label for forever. So I think especially in this early version, like Backdrop 1.0.0 is going to have very few users, whereas Backdrop 1.1.0 will probably have more. So if we make a mistake now, it's super easy to change it. If we wait until Backdrop 2, it'll be a little bit harder because we'll have a couple of years of documentation to worry about. So I think we should just give it a shot, see how it goes, and then we can change it afterwards if it doesn't work. So that's kind of where things stand on that, and definitely, keeping things open for discussion is important. Doing some actual testing on them is even more important, and we'll figure out how those go. Other things we want to do for user experience include adding a rich text editor. This has been sort of postponed until after the initial launch because we think we can do it without breaking APIs, which is good. But if we have anyone who's super passionate about Backdrop 1.0.0 being released with a rich text editor, there is an issue. It can be worked on. We have ideas. We just don't have enough fingers to do all of the typing. And then there's a couple of other issues that we just need to review before we can release. One of them is pretty straightforward. It's just reviewing all of the CSS. We moved all of our CSS around in Backdrop, and we also changed some of our syntax, the way that we address things. And it would be good to just have kind of a holistic review of, here's a list of all the style sheets in core, make sure they all adhere to these coding standards and live in the correct location and all of that stuff. So I created a meta issue for that lists all of the style sheets we need to review. There are some style sheets that we've included that are just for testing purposes, so I've removed those from the list. So if we have someone who's a CSS ninja and wants to take a look at those, that would be pretty great. And then there's also the layout markup. So if the layout patch gets in really soon, we could have someone start looking at this in core. If not, we can have it reviewed in its current pull request. But we have a bunch of markup we're adding for each layout that could use a little review. And so I created an issue for that today too, so that we can get some review. And Nate, if I could have you look at that issue and see if there's anything else in particular you want to have reviewed. I made a bullet list of things we should check. If you can just see if there's anything else in there you want to add, that would be great. So that's the stuff that we're trying to get done before we release. We release soon, so there's a lot of stuff. We could definitely use more hands on deck. If we have anyone who has any time who wants to contribute, we need help with those things. And yeah, so woohoo. Getting close. There's a section in this weekly meeting that we have, it's called Updates from the PMC. So if there are any issues that come up in the queue or otherwise that we need to discuss and solve, as in, does this adhere with where the project is going. The PMC will discuss it and then explain to people through this part of this meeting what we've decided. We don't have any updates this week, but we are retaining this place in the meeting for issues that may come up in the future. So there's a bunch of stuff that we're working on that is not Backdrop the code, Backdrop the original project. There's a bunch of stuff that we need to support our community that we're also working on. Of those, the API website is pretty important. That's the thing our developers are going to be referring to check out our code. And Luke, thank you for joining the meeting today, has done a great amount of work on getting that site up and running, so it already works. I actually use it when I need to see like what's different between Backdrop and Drupal 7. I'll pull it up and look at code, so that's great. And we've also got a change record content type on there, and on GitHub, maybe we should even make a list of these too. A lot of our issues are tagged with needs change record, just like on Drupal.org, their issue queue has a needs change record tag. So I don't know how to generate that list. Anyway, what we'll do, we'll try and generate that list and post it in this agenda too, so we can see it every week. But we should just kind of post that and say these are the issues that we need to have change records created for. And you can go through our queue and say, okay, here's the change. And most of the time, Nate's been tagging something with needs change record. He also puts a little description of what the change is. So it should be pretty easy to start from that and put that into the change record content type on the API site or into change record piece of content. But in some cases, it might not be enough information. You'd be like, what is he talking about? I don't understand what, there's not enough information here. And in those cases, you might need to ping him or just try, like create a change record and then say, is this what you meant? And we can always go and edit them later and try and clean them up. But I think having them on there is more important than not. So even just like a placeholder that's like, this is a change. I don't understand why, but it's here so people can see it, I think is good. And then there's also, and this might be a harder list to figure out too, we need to get the change records for everything that happened between Drupal 7 and the point that we forked in early Drupal 8. All of the change records that have been posted on Drupal.org. Unfortunately, a lot of those change records have been updated since then because Drupal is so different. Drupal 8 is so different. So if we found, for example, like a change to the entity system that we have in Backdrop, it's been changed again since that change record. So we might not be able to use the finished change record that's currently on Drupal.org, but we might be able to view a revision of it. I'm not sure how tight their revision history is on api.drupal.org, but if we could see the initial one or one that maps to roughly the time that we forked, which is February 29th, 2012, that might be a better starting point for us than the finished point of the change record that's on Drupal. I'm not sure, Nate, how to get a list of those change records. Do you think, I mean, it seems like the brute force method would be to look at all of the commits that happened in Backdrop between our fork date and Drupal 7, pull off the node numbers, go through the issues on Drupal.org, see the ones that are tagged needs change record, click the link. It seems like kind of a process. I don't know if there's an easier way you could just like search change records for date range or what.
Yeah, I think we could just do it by date range because they're ordered by date already.
But is that like edited date?
No. You can. I think they're by created date already. And
okay.
even if they weren't, then we could somehow get it into created date order. Yeah, because we'll probably only have to go forward until, what was that? February 2012. So, I mean, I don't think there's actually that many change records. Drupal 8 actually stayed remarkably similar to Drupal 7 for like the first year, and that's pretty much all that we have in the Backdrop code base as far as overlap goes.
It looks like you can only sort by name type or location.
But are you at Drupal.org/list changes?
No, I'm on api.drupal.org/changes.
Oh, yeah. Go to Drupal.org/list changes, and it's actually even sorted already by the date it was created.
Okay.
Here's the link.
Everybody's looking at the same website on a Hangout. Pretty exciting. Okay, so yeah, it looks like there's only two pages worth of change records here, Luke. If you sort them reverse order.
Before September, I'm sorry.
So February that's not too bad. I'm going to post this link in the document too. Updates. Okay.
Yeah, and even some of these, like, there are API changes that were in 777 as well, which means that we've probably already got them in Backdrop. And actually, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how much we need to document things like API changes that are happening in 777 that we also implemented in in Backdrop, because by the time people upgrade from their 777 sites to Backdrop 1.0, they will have already had those API changes in the 777 site.
Yeah, I don't think we should worry about the 777 ones. I think just the ones that are 888.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'd be introduced in branch 8x before September 11th, 2013?
No, it's
I put a link on the agenda, Luke, that has the sort and the filter on it.
Yeah, our fork date is actually February
29th.
February 29th, 2012, yeah. So it's actually only before that date. September of 2013 is when we started the GitHub project, but our fork date was actually a lot earlier than that.
Yeah.
We could also, it also lets you do it by node too. So if we found, oh no, that's different. Okay, never mind. Yeah, that'll be fine. So just the first 2 pages of that, until you get to February 29th is fine. Okay. I will also put a link here to the GitHub issue queue, but I haven't figured out how to build that list yet, so I'll do that after this meeting. Okay. Other things we're working on is an update server. So this is so that when your Backdrop site goes to check with the mothership to see if it's up to date, we need to build that mothership so that your site will know if it's up to date. This, I think, is important to at least have one before we release, so that if people are installing and trying to run a Backdrop site, we at least have some service that's like, we don't have any information yet, so we're not connecting to Drupal's mothership. But I think we do need to get that built shortly after Backdrop is released, so that people can start using it, even if we can't get it done before. We need to have it exist, which is so I think I don't know if we have anyone working on that yet. We have people thinking about it.
Yeah, we have people thinking about it, but no real solid commitments at this point. Like, there's been a lot of ideas around whether or not we could use Packagist or some other package manager solution out there, rather than migrating Drupal's update service. But right now, it's not clear as to which approach is going to be easiest. I honestly think just porting the update module, or sorry, project module code from Drupal 7 over to Backdrop is going to be the easiest and fastest way forward. But I don't know how that all pans out. We'll need to, I mean, we're open to alternatives. It's really just about finding the easiest way forward at this point.
Okay. Other things we're working on are creating an official GitHub service. So this is what allows people who create modules and themes to identify those modules and themes as being made for Backdrop. And then the Backdrop API site will be able to pull those in and create a listing of everything that's available. And I know that we have people thinking about this as well. I don't think that anyone is working on it. So if we have someone who wants to do some fun stuff with GitHub, that is an option. We need help with that too. And then, of course, we have our flagship Backdrop CMS website. In the last 2 weeks, we added a tool on the front page so that anyone who is in support of Backdrop can go there and add their logo. That was something that was requested by a couple of Drupal company owners I talked to. They're like, how do I show that we're in support of this thing? And I was like, oh, that's a good question. We don't really have a way for you to do that. So we just built a little forum on there so that if you are interested in Backdrop or you're fully in support of it, you can put your logo or your name on the page, and that will link to your website. So you get a little Google juice there too, if we can, if you're interested in getting your logo linked from our site. And then we've got other stuff going on with that website. We're going to try and get a redesign done, hopefully about the same time we release, probably shortly after, unless we have someone who wants to build the theme for us, which I think maybe John's still interested in that, so I'll ping him again. And then we also want to add a showcase site, but we need sites to showcase first, so that'll come a little later. We want to add a way that you can search for modules and themes, but first we need modules and themes, so that will also come a little bit later. And we're thinking about adding like a job listing site, like Drupal.org just added a great job site, which I think is brilliant. We could do something like that for Backdrop as well, but first we need jobs. And then we also want to add a services section. So this is just basically like a directory of people that you can hire to do Backdrop stuff for you. And what we thought might be nice is to take the people who are currently uploading their information on the We Support Backdrop section of our homepage and port them directly into the services section, so that when we launch with the services section, those people will basically already be there or can opt in really easily. So service providers, something like that. Anyway, so we've got big plans for the Backdrop website, but obviously we've got bigger plans for Backdrop. So first things first, we're going to get some software out. We're going to port the Backdrop website to using Backdrop, and then we're going to start building out all the cool stuff we can do with it. So yeah, there's a lot to do. We definitely could use more help. I've talked to a lot of people who are super excited about it, but are just kind of waiting to see what happens. But the problem with waiting to see is that you have to wait a little longer because you're not doing the work. We're not all doing the work together. So if anyone does have any time, now is the time to contribute, which would be great. If not, waiting and seeing is fine, but you'll see less than you would see if you were helping. So yeah, we're getting close. I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah, good stuff. We've got a couple of ways that we can all work together on getting stuff done. Every Thursday after this meeting, we have a little sprint. Nate and I are usually on IRC. Anyone who else wants to jump in, that's a great time to ping us and ask us for questions because we're usually working on Backdrop stuff. But if you want to sprint with us in real life, we're going to do one at Bad Camp this year on Sunday, which is the last day of the camp, in the sprint area, which is the mezzanine level of the main hall in where Bad Camp is. So anyone who wants to work on Backdrop, we're going to steal a table there and try and get some work done on Sunday, which will be great. And then we have a bunch of other things that we're doing in the nearer term to promote Backdrop. We're going to be at the Pacific Northwest Drupal Summit this weekend. We're leaving tomorrow, and we're going to do a talk there and see what people think about it in the Northwest, which will be fun. And then we have the HTML5 Developer Conference, so our talk is on Monday when we get back, where we get to sell Backdrop to people who don't know what Drupal is necessarily, so that'll be fun. And then we have Bad Camp, November 6th through 9th, followed by SymphonyCon in Madrid, where I've been asked to be a keynote speaker there and talk more about large open source communities than specifically about Backdrop, but as someone who was became frustrated with the way our large open source community in Drupal worked and felt like the project wasn't going where I wanted to go anymore, they asked us to kind of talk about why that happens. So that'll be fun to kind of talk about the problems that appear in a large open source community, as well as the things that Drupal has done really well. And having to start all over again and try and build our own community and deal with our tools, there's definitely some things that we miss about the way Drupal did it. So being able to point those out, I think, will be great. And I think that the Symfony audience would be particularly interested in the things that Drupal does better than GitHub, because that's where they are, and trying to kind of take the good things from what Drupal's done really well and the things that have upset us, so that we can say, this is what your project needs to do to prevent this kind of thing from happening. And I think there's good lessons that any project can learn from that. So I'm super excited about that too. Plus, who doesn't want to go to Spain? So that'll be great. There's also a couple of DrupalCons coming up, a lot of DrupalCons coming up that we are probably going to attend. We're also probably not going to be speaking at Backdrop at them, just so that we don't ruffle too many feathers, but we'll see. We've been requested by 3 DrupalCon organizers to talk about Backdrop at DrupalCon, but I think the consensus is still they don't really want Backdrop at DrupalCon. So we'll do whatever they want us to. If they don't want us to talk about it, we won't. But we'll probably still be there because, you know, we still work with Drupal too. And yeah, we can talk to people about it. So that is the end of the agenda, but I did want to open it up and see if anyone has anything they want to add. Luke, thank you for joining. If you have any questions about anything, we can definitely address those now. Or if Nate, there's anything that you wanted to add.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Well, we will then hop on IRC and start working on Backdrop. Woohoo! So if anyone has any questions later, if you're watching this video and we've said something that sparked your interest, you can tweet at us. We're Backdrop CMS on Twitter. You can contact us through our website, I think, or you can jump on IRC. Nate and I are usually in the Pound Backdrop channel. So yeah, good stuff coming along. Oh, or you can go check our GitHub queue. We've definitely got a lot of new people participating in conversations there, and that's super exciting too. If you've got something you want changed or you don't understand why we're changing, that's a good place to jump in on those. So thank you everyone for joining now and watching later, and we'll see you next week.
All right, bye guys.